Today on Retire with Purpose, are you spending too much on Medicare, how to get cheaper health care abroad, and why retirees are scared to spend?
Are you prepared to retire with purpose? To retire knowing your savings is invested to meet unavoidable needs and expenses.
It's not how much we make during the good times, it's how much we keep during those really bad times.
Certified financial planner Casey Weed is president of Howard Bailey, an advisory firm that believes successful retirement begins with a detailed financial plan personalized to help achieve your life's purpose.
Whatever risk you faced, we've got a plan.
The Howard Bailey team is committed to practical financial planning so you can enjoy family and the future without uncertainty or stress. Stay tuned and learn how you too can retire with purpose.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We are beginning the program today with a very important decision you have to make before your retirement potentially, and it has to do with Medicare. I'm Lee Kelso. This is Casey Weed, certified financial planner and the president of Howard Bailey Financial. So Casey talked recently with an expert on Medicare and retirement for his Retire with Purpose podcast. Her name is Dr. Katy Votava. Tell me more about her.
Yeah, I had a great talk with her. We've had a lot of great experts on the Retire with Purpose podcast, but this one brought a lot of value to one of the central issues that we face in every single client visit as we're transitioning those individuals into retirement, and that is healthcare. One of the number one concern of retirees today, it used to be running out of money in retirement. Now it's healthcare costs. And so we need to make sure that we're addressing healthcare head on. And usually this comes with a discussion around Medicare. She owns a company called goodcare.com. She is a fee-only Medicare and healthcare planner. And so she will actually sit down and address and evaluate your healthcare situation, put together a plan. She doesn't collect a commission. She puts together a plan in order to find the one that's just right for you. And one of the things that makes her really unique is that she actually is a registered nurse and a nurse practitioner. And so she has a healthcare background, and not just experience in the healthcare field, but she holds a PhD in healthcare economics. And she brings a lot of experience from that healthcare world, from the world of economics, into helping people plan best for retirement. And one of those central issues is Medicare, of course. And so we focused a lot of our discussion on Medicare, and she shared with me a pretty astounding statistic around Medicare, and that is that most Medicare beneficiaries are overspending on their health care, and this is what she had to say about it.
90 to 95% of people in Medicare are overspending. And that's a shame when budgets are tight. And why are they overspending and how are they overspending? They don't have the right plan that meets their health care needs. Most typically, the medications they take are not as well covered in the plan they select. They could easily be well covered, better covered in another, or their doctors and hospitals and physical therapists and so on are not what you call in-network. So therefore, they either can't go to the people they want to go to or are paying too much out of pocket.
Yeah, she actually shared with me a story where she helped a client rein in their drug costs, because drug costs are one of those things that really can get out of control. There's no cap on your drug costs. There's no limit on how much those can go to. She helped someone save 6 figures on their drug costs.
Wow.
And that was because she integrated her healthcare background into helping them make that decision. And then once we've kind of figured out the right plan, we do need to put some numbers to it. We need to build that into the retirement strategy, because that will be one of your biggest expenses in retirement. I always say it's going to be taxes, it's going to be health care, probably one of the two. And so we need to make sure we use the right figures for that. And she gave us some advice on how to build that health care expense into your retirement plan.
You're absolutely right. What I recommend is that people have a separate budget line in their retirement projection. Many people over time have put healthcare into the everything category, and it doesn't belong there. Have a separate line in the retirement budget, grow it by a higher inflation rate, 2 to 4 times the CPI. That's just the honest truth. And then figure out, I don't focus on big numbers like some of the organizations that say it's going to be $250,000 in retirement for your health care. I focus on cash flow. What will your cash flow need to be in a year to pay for your needs, generally speaking? Yes, it's an estimate, but you can do it. And that's what's really important is the cash flow. Where's the cash flow coming from for this? How much might it be?
Retirement's all about cash flow. On the way to retirement, we think about return on our investment. What's the biggest return we're actually getting? Once we get to retirement, it's about return of your money, not necessarily return on your money. And those are two very different things. And we've talked to individuals that are coming to us going, well, I just read this article put out by Fidelity or Schwab, or read in the Wall Street Journal that it's going to cost $250,000 for healthcare and retirement. And I've only got, say, $1 million saved for retirement. And I say, well, you don't necessarily have to have $250,000 on the front end of retirement. It's a cash flow issue, right? You might need to have $150,000 in order to satisfy that $250,000 need over your entire lifetime. And one of the things that can really help control those expenses is a Medicare supplement. And she shared with us exactly why you have to shop around when it comes to your Medicare supplement.
So if you have a Medigap G plan, it's the same benefit. It doesn't matter who you buy it from. And you're right that the premiums can be twice as much in one company versus another. And there is no reason to spend more on the plan. What I recommend is you want a solid company with a good track record. Basically, those are your brand name companies that you're familiar with. If you've never heard of the company and they're cheap, I wouldn't go with them. But look at your brand name companies, and then amongst them, look at your best price, because you're right, you could cut their premium in half many times.
You know, many times we'll sit down with couples and evaluate those Medicare plans, and they've picked them up from an agent where that's the only way they get compensated. And all these plans being the same, they end up going with the plan that pays the agent the most. And us as fiduciaries and as independent advisors, we shop around to find the cheapest plan for them, because that is the most important thing when it comes to a Medicare supplement. We might be saving them $25, $50 a month, and that might not seem like much, but an extra $50 a month, that's a decent steak dinner for one, right? And so it's important for us to focus on those dollars and cents. We don't want anything falling through the cracks. And another thing that I wanted to talk to her about is this whole Medicare for all thing. Being that she's got a PhD in healthcare economics and she's worked in the healthcare industry, now she specializes in providing healthcare insurance and the right coverage for individuals. I want to know, well, Dr. Katy, what is your thought on Medicare for all? And her response is pretty interesting.
Medicare for All has become quite of I'd say it's either a slogan or a battle cry for a lot of people. But Medicare for All is not specific enough to really evaluate what it will be. There are 6 different proposals now at the federal level for laws. Some have some similarities, some are quite different. And no one has really answered the question of how will it be paid for. I'm a nurse and I'm an economist. You don't have to be an economist to know, though, like in any family budget, how will it be paid for? That's still mysterious. So what I really still focus on is that the real problem is it costs too darn much. And I think as long as we focus on what's the structure going to be, we are kind of sort of like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, because the cost is crushing us. And to deal, no matter what, people will not like the cost of it. They didn't like the Affordable Care Act, did a lot of things that improve things for people. But I think one of the biggest mistakes in that was to call it affordable, because unless you're very low income, it's very costly. And Medicare for All, whatever form it's going to be in, unless someone has a magic wand, is going to be very costly. So honestly, the rubber hits the road for me on dealing with cost.
Yeah, I'd also encourage you to go back and listen to that episode where we talk about Medicare options. If you're looking at Medicare Advantage, check that out. We also get into a long-term care discussion, and she's also a long-term care expert.
So if you have questions about Medicare, Casey's put together kind of a special offer for you. He has partnered with Dr. Katy to make her Medicare guide available to you at no charge. This is a really interesting guide. It explores the entire scope of Medicare in a pretty easy to understand style. From the basics of Medicare on how to integrate your financial plan with your health care planning, Dr. Katy typically offers this digital edition on our website for $19.95. But because you're watching the program today, we have an opportunity for you to have this at no cost and no obligation. Just call the number on the screen, 866-482-9559, or email info@howardbailey.com. And you'll receive a copy of Making the Most of Medicare, a guide for baby boomers at no cost and with no obligation. All right, we're back to answer your questions in just a moment.
At Howard Bailey Financial, we feel passionately that you deserve a secure and independent retirement. That's why we're offering viewers like you a complimentary consultation to help keep you on that path. At our first visit, we'll spend time getting a genuine understanding of your goal and the purpose for your retirement, so we can present a realistic assessment of your needs. We'll provide you with a cost analysis so you can better understand what your current financial strategy is really costing you. A portfolio stress test to see how much unnecessary risk you might be taking with your nest egg. And a tax review showing you how you could potentially reduce your taxes and increase your income. Once we've uncovered where you are today, we can begin planning for your future, creating a customized written plan to build the fiscal house of your dreams, allowing you to spend less time thinking about money and more time on the important stuff. Call now for your no-obligation, comprehensive financial review.
It's time for Casey to answer some viewer questions, and if you'd like to have a question featured on the show, you just go to retirewithpurpose.com. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little text window there. Pop your question in, and it'll come to Casey. We might use it here on the program. Let's start with Diana from Granger, Indiana.
Casey, I love your show. However, there's something I don't understand. I hear you talk about purpose all the time, but doesn't everyone have the same purpose to protect and grow their money?
Well, Diana, when we talk about purpose, we talk about it in two different ways, right? For one, we want to find out what your purpose is for retirement. Where are you going to find meaning? Where are you going to find fulfillment? And then we're going to structure your assets purposefully and give them each an allocation to most specifically defend against an individual risk or help accomplish an individual goal. And while you say protection and growth, yes, most people will say that. Will say, yeah, I just want to protect it. I want to grow it. I want to make sure it's here. I just want peace of mind, but that's going to mean different things to each person. When you say protection, does that mean you want protection for your emergency funds? You want to have enough funds available in case you need to liquidate them to take care of putting a new roof on the house or taking care of a healthcare emergency, because there's going to be an individual tool that's best for cash and short-term emergencies, long-term emergencies, healthcare emergencies. And a lot of people say they want protection because they're afraid that the next market crash is going to take away their retirement income, or they're going to run out of money during retirement. And if that's the idea, if we're looking for income, then we need to find the most efficient tool to generate a guaranteed lifetime income. And that same tool is not going to end up being the best emergency fund. Then we come to growth. A lot of times we'll hear people say, I want to grow my assets as quickly as I possibly can. We had someone that we worked with here recently that had a substantial amount saved for retirement. And when we talked about growth, he said, well, I really just want to grow it, and I want to grow it at this set rate, want to make 6-10%, wanted to grow at a pretty high rate of return. I said, well, why? Are you going to spend that money? He said, no, I'm not going to spend it. I said, so it's for your children. It's for your legacy. It's to leave money behind. He said, yeah, that's exactly it. Well, if we just allocate those funds to the market and we only live 5 more years, then we might end up leaving less assets to the next generation than we had planned to. We may not have the time to allocate those dollars to the market. Now, if you're young and you say it's growth for future retirement needs, now you have time. The best tool for that is probably going to be to utilize the market. And so we want to identify what growth is for. If it's for inflation in retirement, well, now we have to find a different way of allocating dollars to keep those funds indexed for inflation over time. So we're trying to find the closest distance between 2 points, which is a straight line. We're trying to maximize the efficiency of your retirement plan from the top down. What is your purpose? And then we want to allocate those things from liquidity to income, growth, estate planning in the most efficient way possible. And then lastly, we need to make sure we've got a tax plan to maximize efficiency in each one of those individual categories. And most often we find the worst issues are created because we're not clear on our purpose, or we're not clear on what our tax strategy is.
So Bruce has kind of a related question about emergency funds.
How much is too much cash to have in my emergency fund?
Well, Bruce, a lot of advisors will say 3 to 6 months, and I think that's great. You need to have a bare minimum of 3 to 6 months, but in retirement, I think it should be ultimately whatever helps you sleep at night and still allows you to accomplish your retirement goals. Some of the families we work with, they've got a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, then they've got an extra 1 to 2 years of funds that are there for opportunities. So you've got emergency funds, and then you've got opportunity funds, and those opportunity funds maybe you don't have immediate access to, Maybe we've set them aside in an account that's more tax efficient. It's going to grow at a higher rate of return, maybe 3 or 4 times what you're getting at the bank. And those funds are emergency funds for, those funds are opportunity funds versus your emergency funds. So you've isolated those two goals as well. You're creating efficiencies all around.
Tom in Cromwell, Indiana writes, Casey, why should I care about market risk if I'm not concerned with what's left to my kids?
Well, Tom, I've heard this before. Now, here's the thing. I understand, don't want to leave anything behind to the kids. You want to spend as much as you possibly can, and the market's not going to help most people do that because it doesn't give you certainty about how much you can actually spend each and every year. You're always concerned about that next stock market crash or the next major market pullback or just stock market volatility in general, and this is why people don't spend in retirement. Even if you leave it in the market, let's say we experience a great big bull market. I give this example all the time in our events. You have $1 million and you make 8.5% per year. Well, the timing of the returns every single year over that 20-year period really matters. If you invested in 1989 through 2008, you would have made 8.4% per year. If you had $1 million, you drew $50,000 out every year for 20 years, that million would have turned into $3.1 million. Now, if you reversed those returns, still averaged 8.4% a year, but you started with some market losses on the front end, then you would have ended up with $235,000 after 20 years, a huge difference. And now you might say, but that's okay because I don't want to leave anything behind. You don't know when you're going to pass away, though. You might live to year 22, 23, 24, 25. Now you're out of money in retirement. You need a guaranteed income strategy to make sure that you can spend as much as you can, especially if you're not concerned with what's left behind.
So we started the program discussing Medicare, and that's where we're going with our question of the day. What is the maximum out-of-pocket cost for prescription drugs when you have Medicare drug coverage? Is it $5,100, $10,000, $9,200? Well, we'll have the answer when we come back. First, though, since we're talking about Medicare, if you have questions about Medicare, Casey has kind of a special offer for you today. He's worked with Dr. Katy Votava to make a copy of her guide for Medicare for baby boomers available to you at no cost. This is a really interesting guide written in a very entertaining and really understandable format that covers the basics of Medicare, but also goes into how you can plan for health care costs in your retirement. And typically, this will cost $19.95 on Dr. Katy's site, but Casey's worked out an opportunity for you to receive this guide at no cost with no obligation. Call 866-482-9559 or email at info@howardbailey.com and you can receive Making the Most of Medicare, a guide for baby boomers at no cost. We're right back in just a second.
At Howard Bailey Financial, we feel passionately that you deserve a secure and independent retirement. That's why we're offering viewers like you a complimentary consultation to help keep you on that path. At our first visit, we'll spend time getting a genuine understanding of your goal and the purpose for your retirement, so we can present a realistic assessment of your needs. We'll provide you with a cost analysis so you can better understand what your current financial strategy is really costing you. A portfolio stress test to see how much unnecessary risk you might be taking with your nest egg. And a tax review showing you how you could potentially reduce your taxes and increase your income. Once we've uncovered where you are today, we can begin planning for your future, creating a customized written plan to build the fiscal house of your dreams, allowing you to spend less time thinking about money and more time on the important stuff. Call now for your no-obligation, comprehensive financial review.
Well, how'd you do with our question of the day? Going into the break, we asked you about Medicare and what is the out-of-pocket cost for prescription drugs when you have Medicare drug coverage? What's the maximum you could face, Casey?
Well, you're going to be kind of sad to know that it's D. It's unlimited. And that was one of the biggest takeaways from that interview with Dr. Votava was just how much of a burden drug costs can be and how scary that can be during retirement if we're not working with the right professional that really understands not just how to get us on the right plan, but how to get us on the right plan for the specific drugs that we're taking in any given year. And this is why we need to reevaluate the plans we're on every year, especially our drug plan.
All right, we're going to shift now to weekend reading for retirees, and if you'd like to enroll, it is so simple. Just go to retirewithpurpose.com. You can scroll down on the page, you'll see a place to leave your email, and then once you do, you will have an opportunity to receive 4 articles from Casey every week. No spam, no chaff, just the real deal. 4 articles that are worth your time, and that's what we're going to focus on today. The first one is about an American surgeon in Mexico, and really it's all about healthcare tourism.
Yeah, I love the headline that they put together for this article. The New York Times just does a wonderful job of putting together some great headlines that catch your attention. And this one did for me because I'm seeing more and more individuals starting to do some medical tourism while they're in retirement due to just healthcare costs and minimizing those costs as much as they can. My dad and mom have been doing this, especially my dad. He tells everyone about how great of healthcare he's been able to receive in Mexico. He does his dental care. He just did a dental surgery not that long ago, and it saved him thousands of dollars by getting it done in Mexico. And our concern is, well, what kind of care are we going to get? How safe is it wherever that physician's office is? And it's getting much, much better. There's actually American surgeons, American physicians that are going down there. They're getting paid more, and their clients, their patients are also ending up with the same care, but more money in their pocket at the same time. And when I was talking to Dr. Katy Votava about this on the Retire with Purpose podcast, she talks about all the time about the healthcare costs in the U.S. just being out of control. It's not that health insurance costs too much, it's that we need to control the cost of healthcare itself. And if we see more globalization, people getting more comfortable with the globalization of healthcare, I think that drives down the cost in the U.S. It just creates more competition, and this will be a really good thing for retirees. In the meantime, just start looking into getting that health care abroad.
Let's move ahead to RMDs, and the IRS is thinking about a change that could affect you.
Yeah, and Ed Slott's one of my favorite experts in the world of taxes, and especially IRAs. He is the premier IRA expert in the country. Our advisors have received training directly from him because IRA rules are just so complex. And my biggest takeaway here is, this was all about some recent legislation that was issued, some rulings that were issued around IRA distributions. And is it when the check is released by the custodian, or is it when that check is cashed that you've actually satisfied your required minimum distribution for the year? And it looks as if that it's when the distribution occurs, not necessarily when it's cashed. However, the ruling is very unclear, and it leaves it open for interpretation. And that could mean that a lot of retirees end up facing a really big penalty. That's a 50% penalty tax on top of your ordinary income taxes if you don't take that distribution on time. So make sure that you're taking that distribution every year and starting early. Don't wait until the last minute, and realize it's not the custodian's responsibility. The responsibility doesn't land on your financial advisor. It is 100% the IRA owner's responsibility when it comes to taking that required distribution.
Well, with the 50% penalty, yeah, you want to pay attention to that one, right? So another article that Casey distributed as part of Weekend Reading was all about 3 retirement myths debunked.
Yeah, and there were a couple of these that really stood out to me, and one of those was mortgages. It's not very often you come across these articles that say, hey, carry a mortgage into retirement.
Yeah.
And I talk about this today. I think it was different when we had 7-8% mortgage rates. Now we've got people that are getting 3-4% mortgage rates. Right? There's nothing wrong with that, and it really creates an arbitrage opportunity for a lot of individuals, even taking out a mortgage when they step into retirement. Right? You're 65 years old. Take out a 30-year mortgage and reinvest those dollars at 5% or 4%, and you've got a lower rate than you're paying on your mortgage. And that can be something that can create a better financial future for a lot of people, is to really scrutinize, does it make sense? And some will say, well, I'll never pay it off by the time that I die. Who cares? Your kids will inherit an asset that carries some debt. They sell the asset and they still end up with cash in the end. Now, it might be different if you're really hoping that the kids live in that vacation home or that lake home, or retain the farm into the future. That might be a little different, but I think people are becoming more accustomed to carrying mortgages into retirement. The other thing that stood out to me was their discussion around spending in retirement. The myth myth is that your retirement your expenses will go down as you step into retirement. Quite often they'll step up as you step into retirement, especially in those first few years you're going, right? I've got families that are, they're traveling in their RV, they're traveling around the world, they're going out to eat, they're playing golf every day. Make sure you really think through what your expenses might do as they go into retirement. That's why we say, think through a day in retirement. What are you going to do every single hour of that day, and then budget for it?
So that kind of goes against this next article, which is some people are afraid to spend in retirement.
Yeah, and this is something we see all the time. Now, there's something that I didn't love this article, but I still thought it offered some valuable insight and, a soapbox for me to stand on. And, it talks about how retirees today have all this wealth, right? Americans today, they're stepping into retirement, they have all this wealth, they're afraid to spend. They're saying, okay, well today, there's about $110 trillion that Americans have in their own personal net worth, up $57 trillion since 2008. Why aren't they spending it? Well, it's because they're scared it might go back down to $57 trillion, and they haven't created a plan that gives them that certainty that they're going to be able to spend. Most of them still have it in the same investments they did back in 2008.
I'm going to go back to where we started the program, and that is to be thinking about Medicare, a cost that we all have to plan for. And Casey has a special offer for you today. He has partnered with Dr. Katy to make available her guide for Medicare and baby boomers. It is available to you at no cost. Call 866-482-9559 or send an email to info@howardbailey.com, and you'll receive this very helpful, easy to understand guide to walk you through a lot of the really complex decisions around one of the most important retirement decisions you can make, and that is about Medicare. So call the number on your screen or send that email, and you'll receive a copy of Making the Most of Medicare at no charge, a $19.95 value if you were to get it directly from Dr. Katy. We thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week here on Retire with Purpose.
At Howard Bailey Financial, we feel passionately that you deserve a secure and independent retirement. That's why we're offering viewers like you a complimentary consultation to help keep you on that path. At our first visit, we'll spend time getting a genuine understanding of your goal and the purpose for your retirement, so we can present a realistic assessment of your needs. We'll provide you with a cost analysis so you can better understand what your current financial strategy is really costing you. A portfolio stress test to see how much unnecessary risk you might be taking with your nest egg. And a tax review showing you how you could potentially reduce your taxes and increase your income. Once we've uncovered where you are today, we can begin planning for your future, creating a customized written plan to build the fiscal house of your dreams, allowing you to spend less time thinking about money and more time on the important stuff. Call now for your no-obligation, comprehensive financial review.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation?
Will you be there for my ball games?
Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me.
Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?